Happy Friday. Hi.
Hi.
I am here with, oh my gosh, you're my favorite. With Jackie Yvette. And Jackie is an expert in the psychology of marketing. And I'm so happy that you chose our group to spend some time with us talking about the mindset of marketing, the psychology behind marketing, and how we can present our businesses in ways that are really aligned with us in what we want and what we're doing in our business. So let me do the formal intro. How are you, by the way?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Thanks
Okay.
for having me. Hi, everyone watching.
Hi. Okay, so Jackie is a marketing and business mentor and the founder of the neuromarketing method. She's all about helping you use reuse your ideal client's mind to position yourself for massive profit so that you're only attracting ideal high-end clients, which we all want to work with ideal clients. Her Facebook group is called Organic Marketing Secrets for Online Coaches, Consultants, and Course Creators. If you want to join, and we'll put the link below.
Perfect.
So you guys have that. Happy Friday. How's your week been?
Been great. Super excited to be here and to talk to you guys about psychology and marketing and what that looks like. And I've talked with Marianne so much about the mindset of marketing and the mindset inside entrepreneurship and how it's more than just like be positive and think happy thoughts and do your meditations and whatever, and then you'll be good to go. Like there's so much more going on in your mind, and so I'm really excited to talk a lot more about how that actually directly correlates to revenue, and there's an ROI to doing the inner work, and it's so important because entrepreneurship really is an inside job. And I never really thought that I would say it that way because I'm really into like marketing, and a lot of people are like, well, if you're super into the marketing stuff, what about, what about the mindset and all that? And it really, kind of hit me like a ton of bricks at one point where I was like, oh my gosh, that's why things aren't working as well as they could be because I need to doing that work. Yeah. I mean, I've always been into personal development, but there was a time where I was like, well, I just have to, show up and hustle and do all the things and it'll just all work out and it'll all line up. And so I neglected doing some of that work, and we'll get into what that work looks like in a second, but I neglected looking at what I was actually feeling and listening to my body and trusting myself. And I just pushed harder, and I thought that it was like discipline that I was lacking. Let me know in the comments if you guys ever felt like that. If you just think like, oh, maybe I'm just not disciplined. Maybe I just need to like push harder and then I'll get the results that I'm looking for. I'm just not doing like the strategy. And that might be a thing. Like a lot of people are sleeping on strategy. It's an important thing. It's not one of the other. Marianne, you've probably seen this too, but I see so many entrepreneurs who are like, fairy, airy type of goddess people, and no shade to that style, but it oftentimes looks like just sit and meditate and let the abundance come to you. And I just, it doesn't always work like that. And if it does, please tell me how, because I would like to know.
But I would like to know that as well.
Yeah.
And like you said, no throwing shade to that, but I think that there's like your shame tends to grow when that abundance doesn't come, when you're doing all the things that, like when you're meditating, you're doing breath work, you're going to therapy, you're doing all the things. And sometimes it's because you're doing all the things and pushing and pushing and pushing and trying to do each one of those in a very like the right way.
Right.
That then we feel badly when we're not seeing that reflected in our bottom line, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a mix. You have to have both. Eventually it's just strategy, and it's just hustle and strategic, and just do the right things in the right order over and over and over again. If there's something misaligned, you will burn out. And I've seen this many times with entrepreneurs who are very much into the hustle zone. And I'm not against hustle either. Like, it does require some work, especially when you're first getting started. There is a level of hustle, but it also really pays to have an element of alignment going on. And I've seen so many times entrepreneurs just pushing, hustling, and neglecting themselves and not trusting themselves to understand when it's time to rest, or when you need something a little different than more work. And they ultimately burn out, and sometimes even just like quit their whole business. And then they build it up again, and then they do the same thing. And it's just this big roller coaster. And then all this shame comes in, that like you're talking about, and disappointment, and fatigue, and health issues, and all sorts of things. And they're never really building ultimate wealth, because they keep just going like this all over the place. And as a result, their income looks like this.
Yeah. And literally nobody wants that.
No, it doesn't feel.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
No, that's the worst.
Yeah, and then you become unreliable as well to, other people who maybe want to like hire you to speak, or your clients, or partnerships, or relationships in your personal life. It becomes hard to predict what's going on, and hard to rely on. So you end up dropping commitments and becoming out of integrity. So it just really pays to pay attention to that stuff as well.
So how do you, like, for you, you've been doing this for quite a while, and you're very successful in all the ways that we tend to define success. So what issues have you seen over the years in people's businesses that sort of indicate to you they're not really doing that very important inner work?
Yeah. So there's quite a few kind of like indicators, because it's an interesting question, because I have seen, I won't say you can't have success without doing the inner work, because I've seen it plenty of times and you can kind of spot it pretty easily, right? Like when you see someone who clearly has a thriving business financially, but you can tell they're just like really unhappy, or people who are high performers, you can tell they're like not the most like grounded, happy human. Like, not going to get political, but like Donald Trump makes a lot of money, but like you look at him and you can kind of tell he's not a happy man, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
And
he's angry. He just seems angry.
Yeah. He seems like he's got some like resentment and anger and stuff to work through. He probably needs a therapist, but
not me.
Not you. Someone else can handle that job, right? But you can see when people are having monetary success, probably temporarily, but they are not doing well personally. And so that's a huge indicator of, they're not doing the work. You can just tell from the outside that this is not a happy person. They're not fulfilled. They're not doing well. If they're like disconnected from family and friends, that sort of thing, like those are indicators. But then if we're actually looking at their business and, what that looks like, there are many ways to kind of see that. And you can see it through engagement. You can see it through the way that they're connecting to their audience. A big thing that happens when you are doing that work is you start to get vulnerable with yourself when you're doing the work to like dig into like, what's going on in my brain? Why do I do the things that I do? Why do I procrastinate? Why am I a perfectionist? And I have a mentor who used to say, perfectionism is procrastination in a cuter outfit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's cute. I like that. But
yeah, that is cute.
You're asking yourself, why do I do that? Not necessarily like, okay, how do I make it stop? I think that's a huge that's a huge like inclination for a lot of entrepreneurs. How do I just stop this thing so I can like move forward?
Yeah.
And as you know, it's really helpful to get to the root of it. Like, why are you doing that to begin with? Like, why is that a pattern for you? Why are you conditioned to play this out? And then when you're able to look at where this is coming from, it becomes a lot easier to no longer do it and to figure out how to kind of rewire that. But it's also really hard to do alone, which is why you do what you do, because people need support in walking through this. But one of the things that happens when you start to do this work is your engagement will, at first, it may go down, because you're going to start like getting very intentional about the way that you're showing up, and you might be sharing like vulnerable stuff. You might be talking to people more specifically. If you're starting to understand you, then you're probably starting to understand them a bit more, and you're going to be narrowing down a little. But all in all, when you start to open up and share and be vulnerable with your audience, your engagement actually goes up. And so you will have an increase in engagement because you're actually connecting with people really deeply and you're becoming really relatable to them. And there's a caveat to this, though, because we don't want to be just airing our dirty laundry all over the place and saying, all sorts of things that are going on in our personal lives and just using Facebook as a diary. I have some people who I'm friends with from high school who do that still. And they're like, on my way to work, I hate this job, wish I had a different job. And like, the kids are being crazy right now. It's crazy. I just don't know. Just all sorts of things. Or like, here's for lunch. And like, that's not vulnerability. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's not being vulnerable. That's just oversharing things that no one cares about. So vulnerability looks like sharing from an experience, typically something that is like a little hard to share. And reflecting on that experience. And you can do that from a place of leadership. You don't have to do that from a place of like victimhood or looking for sympathy. You can maintain, leadership status by sharing from the wound, not from the scar. And that's not to say that you can't share when you're going through something or anything like that, but it's helpful to maintain like this place of leadership, to not be sharing from like, everything sucks, I don't know what to do, I feel like such a mess right now. Like, that's okay if you want to do that. I'm not judging that. However, your audience they're not supposed to be your supporters. If you're trying to sell to them, if you're trying to market to them, they're not supposed to be your support system or your therapist, right? You're the guiding person for them. You're the leader for them. So if you need support, I recommend getting it from another source versus using your audience for that on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. But when you start to share from a place of like, this is what happened and it felt this way, and you can be really vulnerable with them, like you can let it all out. And here's what I learned from that. And here's how I reflect on that. And now what I've learned is this. And now how I'm moving forward is this. And this is what I do with my clients. And when clients have experiences like this is how I handle it now, because I'm more informed in this way. Because the chances are that, your clients have probably felt this way or feel this way now. So when you start to do the inner work, when you start to understand your own psychology and what's going on, when you're going into those emotional depths, you're much more able to go to emotional depths with your clients. So when you're learning about how your brain works and why it does the things that it does, you're able to put words to those feelings and those experiences, and then you're able to share about it. And then when you share about it, inevitably, your clients are going to find something in that story that they connect with as well, and they're going to feel closer to you. And then that works really well in terms of getting people connected with you and building a real relationship with your potential clients. Happy Friday! Oh no, the training on my phone came on.
It's not. I know there's a lag, but I'm ignoring it. I can't see it yet, but
it's
okay. Yeah. So wow, there was a lot in that.
Yeah. Just kind of a ramble,
but there was so much in that. I think one of the things I heard you say is, not sort of treating Facebook like it's your personal like diary, right? And so I heard like be intentional and strategic, but share in a vulnerable way. You didn't say this, but like not in a like needy kind of way. Yeah. And I think it goes back to like What did you say about showing your scars, not your wounds? Sharing your
Yeah, you
scars?
speak from the scar instead of the like bleeding.
Yeah.
Like this is hurting and painful right now, and I need to talk to someone. Um, there's nothing wrong with that. Like if you want to utilize your audience in that way, but it does position you as less than a leader sometimes if you're always
Mm-hmm.
turning to your audience to support you because you are the one to support them. If you are ultimately trying to, support them in the thing that you do for a living, then it does kind of swap the situation. If that,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah.
So more often than not, I think women, and I say this just from working with women for years in a therapeutic setting, is that as their therapist, that we tend to really keep things inside.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some people that maybe would do that, but for the most part, I think we just like anything other than hey, what are your 2020 goals, and all that stuff is great, but to go a little deeper feels really scary.
Mm-hmm.
um but it doesn't have to, hear you saying it doesn't have to be an all or nothing kind of thing either. Like you can share a little bit, but make sure your wounds are healed. And you might need help with that.
Yeah.
I know I do whenever I'm really hurting,
Yeah.
because if you don't, you'll end up like crossing a lot of weird boundaries.
Yeah. It can get a little funky in terms of the dynamic. Yeah, but when you're going through the process of doing that healing with a therapist or a coach or whoever you're getting support from to move through the things that are coming up in your business, it will just accelerate your growth to a crazy extent. It is really, really challenging to show up fully and share your gifts with the world and create content. Like that becomes the hardest thing ever when you're going through stuff. Like you sit down, you're like, well, what the heck do I write? Like I don't even feel
Yeah.
the energy to do anything. Like how am I supposed to create? And so, for you entrepreneurs who are watching, who consider yourselves high performers, and you're like, I'm a high energy, high performing person. Like this is what I do. And yet it feels so difficult to like bust through your next income ceiling, or it feels like, at the end of the day, you've already done everything that you need to do for your existing clients and for your kids and for whoever else, that you're like, I don't have any energy to pour into like something new. That is not a problem that's solved by just like going harder or getting up earlier. Like that doesn't just, miraculously solve that. Like there's something going on there that is like keeping you stuck or keeping you in that perfectionist procrastination cycle, or just like low energy because of whatever else. That's not a thing that like hustle remedies. And it's so hard to show up fully and even vulnerably, like we were just talking about, when you're feeling like that. So when you start to get that support and you're able to like put words to the emotions you're feeling and see like, okay, that's why I did that, or that's why this thing came up for me, and oh, I remember the first time that happened when I was a kid and what that meant to me in that moment. And when you're able to kind of go through the process of really just like doing work, and it's not an instant thing. Like I read your post the other day, Marianne, that was about how you can literally hire out anything in your business. Like you guys are all high performing women, like you can hire it all out. You can get an assistant, you can get a copywriter, you can do all that stuff, but you can't outsource like doing this work. And it is like the best investment that you'll ever make, because it improves your energy. It improves the way that you show up for your clients. Like you're going to be in alignment. So you're attracting people who fit with like the mission that you have in the world and what you're actually wanting to do. So then you don't, burn out and then burn it all to the ground and then build it up again and do that whole cycle. And it becomes just a lot easier to show up every day and to do the business type of work. So I'm a big fan of addressing that in conjunction with doing the marketing and sales and business stuff. not because it's like they work together, even though they do, but because one is really not complete without the other.
So how do you know when you need to maybe refine a system or refine your message or whatever, or it's actually mindset? I think mindset, it's such a catch-all kind of phrase, but when it's actually something deeper.
So how to know when it's like a strategy thing or a mindset thing?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think it's always both, or like typically it's both. I don't think strategy alone will fix it, but sometimes, sometimes it is a strategy. Like sometimes I'll get people who are like, it's I know that I have mindset blocks, and I'm like, okay, so what have you been doing toward the goal? And they're like, well, I don't know. I guess I don't really know what I need to be doing. And I'm like, okay, that might not be a mindset block. It might just be you don't know what to do. If you knew what to do, would you be doing it? And they're like, yeah, I think so. That's not a mindset block. That's just you don't know how, right? So it's like that. Sometimes people be like, I have a ton of mindset stuff and I need to like spend all this time going through it and then I'll take action. And I don't think it's a this, then this type of thing. I think it's like a both. Something that one of my mentors always says is like, learn as you earn. It's kind of like you're doing both at the same time. You're learning how to do things while implementing and like making money. So I think it's kind of similar that we're forever doing the inner work. Like you're never like, I'm healed.
Yeah.
You get there, right? So like you're always kind of excavating and looking deeper and asking yourself questions and trying to figure out like what's going on in the black hole of your brain to like decipher, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like I don't want to show up for this thing? Like what, looking into it and then doing the work to like repair and heal and rewire and all that stuff. And just having support when stuff inevitably comes up, because we're humans. But at the same time, you're also showing up and challenging yourself every day to like build better habits and, reaching out to clients and doing the marketing work. So I think it's like we're doing both. And sometimes it is hard to differentiate, but what you can do is kind of tap in, get a little zen with it and like ask yourself, what is actually going on here? Like, what is the truth to this right now? Is this, where is this resistance coming from? Because either way, it's resistance, right? Like, you're like, I'm not doing a thing. So you're hitting a wall. So it's like, okay, what is the resistance coming from? Is it genuinely that I just don't know what to do? Or am I lying to myself and I actually do know what to do and I'm still not doing it? Like what is that? And I think that you will get an answer when you attempt to get really honest with yourself about that, because no one can really tell you for sure what it is. And if it's one of those things where it's like you keep doing the same thing over and over and you're not getting the results that you're looking for, like that's the definition of insanity, right? Like you do the same thing again and again and again and expect different results. And this happens a lot with entrepreneurs where they're like, I keep not doing it, or I keep like getting burnt out or like, feeling like crap. And they're like, why? And then they're like, well, I just need to go harder next time. I just need to keep doing it. No, like if nothing changes. So perhaps, just perhaps, it might be something deeper and not actually like a marketing issue. But they absolutely influence each other. So they're totally related. I'm not sure if that's me or not. Sorry about that.
I don't think it's me. I could be wrong. So I mean, one really good point is that the work never ends.
Yeah.
That because things are always changing around us, we could be in abundance mindset, one moment, and then something happens, right? Or outside of us. And we're always like reacting and interacting with things with changes. I mean, one thing is constant and that's change, right? So I think that's a really good point because when we get stuck in our perfectionism, perfectionism is a very black and white mindset. Mm-hmm. And even if we kind of move a little bit away from it, we can kind of move back to it and then see things through that same lens and not even notice that that's what we're doing. So, like when you're writing a piece of marketing, I think one of the things that I hear a lot is, oh my God, I spend like 3 hours writing this post, and then I'm so disappointed when only 500 people like it. And I say 500 because a lot of us, no matter how much it is like never enough. Yeah. And that is definitely a mindset thing.
Yeah. If it feels like an itch that just can't be scratched, and it's like you're never achieving. And it's always, fulfillment will never be reached if the bar keeps moving, right? So it's like, if you give yourself small things to be excited about, which typically are like pieces on the journey, right? Like the destination is always going to be moving further and further away from you. Like you're never going to be like, I made it.
Yeah.
Mom, look at me, I made it. Like it's not going to be that thing, you're always going to be aiming for something else. It'll always be something new. So it sounds cliche, but it's like if you can actually enjoy the small things along the way and enjoy the journey and the process, it becomes so much more fulfilling to do this. And I I spoke with someone at an event that we were at together, and he was telling me about the first time he made $1 million. He was 27 years old, and he was like, I hope that he said something that like similar to like what Jim Carrey says about how I hope everyone, gets rich so they can realize how empty and meaningless it is. And, he was like, it was the most depressing part of my life because I made $1 million. And I was like, now what? Like, that wasn't that hard. It wasn't that fulfilling. I don't feel that rewarded. Like, what do I do now? And so what I don't want to see happen with all the pain and struggle going on in the world, like, it's very prominent, and people are feeling it right now, especially after Kobe Bryant, and like there's just a lot of heaviness in the world, and a lot of people are in pain and are hurting. And if we're all seeking this thing that actually ultimately will not give us happiness, then something needs to shift there, right? So if we can do some of that introspective work and really prioritize mental health and personal growth and self-care and all those things. Self-care, not meaning bubble baths, but like actually just looking at yourself, getting to know yourself, being a friend to yourself, understanding what your motivations are and what actually fulfills you and why you're doing this work in the first place. Like that's a great place to start in terms of doing the inner work that will directly impact your revenue. And it sounds like it's not related. Like I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of my clients who are like, well, I don't need to understand like psychology, like at least mine. Like I don't need to understand me. I just tell me how to figure out how to read my ideal client's mind and like how to talk to them so that they buy things. And like, let's just do that. Like I don't need to do this work. And they don't think it's related. And then we'll do like an exercise or two where they'll reconnect to what their mission is in their business. And they'll get like super excited again because they kind of forgot. And they go out and they get a client like that because their conviction and clarity and confidence and excitement, that energy is like contagious. People want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So just, that's just one example, but doing the work of getting yourself connected and doing that like personal deep dive directly impacts your income. It's not a waste of time or a thing that like takes you further away from making money. It like will make you money. And it's not like voodoo, mystical, magical stuff. It's literally like, it's just how it works. Like you will have more success when you do some of this stuff, for sure.
It's so interesting too, because it really is the last thing people tend to spend money on.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I kind of am spending all the time harping on it, because it's like especially as high performers, we're like, how do I make more cash?
Yeah.
What do I need to do immediately to increase my income? And I'm preaching to the choir too, because I am the person who still has to talk myself out of this mindset, because I spent so many years in the beginning of my business not investing in anything that I didn't think had an immediate ROI. If I wasn't going to see this come back in dollars and it was like predictable, I didn't want to spend money on it. Didn't want to get a life coach, didn't want to get a nutritionist, didn't want to do personal training, didn't want to like, go to therapy. I didn't want to do anything that wasn't like, here's how you make more money.
Yeah.
I was wondering, why am I feeling stuck? Why do I feel like I'm procrastinating? What's the deal? And surprise, surprise, it had nothing to do with like my business really and how I was like structuring things. And my energy was a whole hot mess. And like I had like all these like doubt stories and reasons why that were just like complete BS, but I didn't see it in the moment. And I'll tell you a little story. I actually was like, I got together with some friends in Encinitas. I was living in Chicago at the time, and I flew out to San Diego, and my friend and I organized a retreat with some other girls who we like knew on Instagram. We'd all connected, and we were kind of like internet friends. And we decided, let's gather some of our friends, rent out an Airbnb, and just like get to know each other in real life and like talk business and whatever else. And it wasn't a business retreat. It was just like friends getting together. And this is before I even moved out here, but now I live here and I'm still friends with a good amount of them. But this was years ago, and we all got together in this Airbnb, and it was beautiful, and it was great. And we ended up not talking about business at all. And we ended up talking entirely about our personal lives, the stuff that like felt really icky right now with like the way that entrepreneurship was for us. But it wasn't even like strategic. It was like, I have a lot of trouble showing up right now, or, I'm really like feeling resentful of my business, and I don't know if I can do this. And like, we ended up talking about the deep stuff, or like, stuff with our families and how that was impacting the way we show up. And, the things that people don't talk about publicly around like, the dark side of entrepreneurship, and how it's really hard sometimes, and how we like don't sleep that much or whatever it was. And we started to talk about the real deal. And I was like, oh my goodness, why are people not talking about this? First of all. Secondly, by the end of the trip, one of my friends was like, I have an amazing therapist / a life coach. He's licensed like you, but he has his own coaching business. So similar business. And she was like, I have this awesome guy. His name's Gavin. He's great. And I see him once a week. And it's so helpful just to clear out what's going on up there so that I can like get back into my business and like move things forward. And yes, the stuff still comes up, but then I know that like we're going to talk about it every single week and move through it. And I have a process for it. Like I know how to get back into a state of alignment and get moving again. And all of us were like, give me his number. Like I got to talk to him. And we all of us ended up working with him for a few months.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was like, where did all these people come from? And like 7 of us ended up signing up to work with him for at least a few months. I worked with him for like a year. And it was completely life-changing when it comes to my actual business numbers. Like I didn't expect that it would impact it that much, because we didn't really talk business. We did sometimes, but it really wasn't directly about my business, but it had an effect like it was directly about my business.
And it was about your life.
Right. It was, and this is not in a vacuum. It's not like it's like business and then life. Like it's all together. So when I actually paid attention to that, I was like, oh, this is the secret. Like you have to be including this. This is a must have. I mean, I was watching the fight the other night with McGregor and whoever the other dude was that he knocked out in 40 seconds. And Tony Robbins was standing behind him. And I was like, there you go. Like some of the most like monetarily successful people out there, they want support too. And they have people like Tony Robbins in their corner, because they know that success comes from mastering your mind. And that when you are able to like move through some of that stuff, you can show up fully in whatever other areas, your relationships, your business, performance, whatever. So that was like really cool to see. And I love that this is becoming more of a conversation that people are willing to have. And it's not like, hush, hush, don't tell anyone that you are like getting support or getting help with this or whatever.
Yeah. So Tony Robbins was coaching him?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And same thing with like other like actors and performers and, you know, celebrities, like the people who we look at and we're like, oh my gosh, their life is probably amazing. I wish I had all that success and money and giant houses and fame and whatever. And they're like, I need help. Like,
totally. The most successful people have coaches, therapists, people around them to keep them grounded, to give them that like 30,000 foot view that they can't see themselves. And when you're in that place, like consistently, you're getting that kind of support that you need. You are able to show up, for instance, online, if you're an online entrepreneur, in a very, like you're saying, a very aligned, clear way, which in turn attracts people who are looking for that to you, which is what you want anyway, right? We want like to work with people who know what they want and are willing to ask for what they want and are willing to kind of put aside that ego that tells them, no, we can do this ourselves, and say, okay, I understand you're protecting me. We're going to get some help from her, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And what a great message to send other people, which I think is part of what you're saying, is like being more open with each other about like, hey, yeah, I seem so grounded because I have 3 coaches and a therapist that work with me. Like, people are starting to reveal the behind the scenes stuff that has really helped them get to where they are.
Yeah.
So when you do get that money, like you feel fulfilled, you do what you want with it, whether it's like, I mean, a lot of women tend to be very sort of altruistic, you know, like we want like a passion, we want a purpose. I know I would love to give away a lot more money to causes that I believe in. And I think all of us are very purpose driven. And, you know, you can't do that unless you're bringing it into you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think it's worth mentioning that getting support is not meant to like fix the parts of you that you feel are broken. And it's not meant to like have, like, you can't just, so for example, something that like a thing that I've seen happen a lot is people will hire business coaches or me or whoever, marketing people who are supposed to help them make more money, and they will make the investment, and then they'll be like, I need to like, you know, why is nothing happening? You know, and it's not like the act of just investing. Sometimes, yeah, it like causes like a vibrational shift and like you'll bring in money sporadically or randomly. But like it actually requires showing up and doing the actual work. And the person who's there to guide you is that a guide to help you find the answers. So I think it's worth mentioning just so that, you guys watching, that like you are whole and complete as you are. You have the answers within you, but everyone has blind spots, right? Like everyone has things that they can't see. And so having someone there to like mirror and to guide you because they're trained in that, guide you to like pull the things out and figure out what's going on here. What am I not seeing? How can I move through this? That is like the juice, right? But like you get to show up fully and intentionally with full responsibility for your own process and for your own results. And I think that I wanted to mention that because I've seen quite a few people, work with like mindset coaches or, life coaches, and they'll be like, well, they didn't do anything for me. And it's like, well, they can't come in there and like literally do brain surgery on you, that's not how it works. And also, knowing that we are in the driver's seat of our own life. And if something feels off about your business or your life in general, it's it might not be your fault that things are happening the way that they are, but it's your responsibility to figure out what's next and to like find support and utilize it. And I think that that's what's so cool about, you know, people like you and people who are doing that work is like you have the opportunity to like help people see what they're not seeing and discover their blind spots so that they can see that and they're like, oh my gosh, you're so right. I didn't even know that. And then when they're able to shift out of that or move through that, they can now feel even more empowered that they were able to do that for themselves. Because you showed them how to do that for themselves. And I think
that's totally. I mean, because we really can't see that for ourselves. Most of the time. I mean, I have people who do that for me, you know, like, have you noticed that? That seems to be kind of a pattern for you. Or have you thought about it this way? And I'm like, oh my God, you're a genius. You just don't, what is that? Like, you can't see like what's behind your head. It's so true. But being able to see it, or it being like brought to your attention, shall we say, really, really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So yeah. And you know, like when you're digging into the process and like feeling those emotions and all that, that gives you access to like, what's the story behind that? Like what's going on there? And now you can like go out and talk with your audience and like ask them like, does this resonate with you? Have you ever felt this way? And you're able to like have such an impact in that way. And that opens up more conversation like this. And not only will that also get you clients, but it will allow you to connect with people on a deeper level and for these conversations to continue happening publicly versus keeping them a secret. And I think that's just
yeah, totally. Let me just, hi, Sandra. Sandra says powerful questions. I love it. Yes, girl, this is when you're talking about mental health. Mental health is essential. Love you, ladies. So much value in this interview. Thanks, Sandra. And Debbie was on here. I don't know if she still is. If you guys are on here live, give us some hearts, help with the algorithm. Anything but the angry face. Anything with the angry face. The algorithm doesn't like the angry face.
No, it does not. I don't like it either.
So I know we're coming to the end, but I wanted to come back to the writing vulnerably, because I know for me, that's really hard.
Yeah.
How do we know if like too much is too much? Like, let me give you an example. Yeah, we both have a lot of Facebook friends, right? Like 5,000, whatever. So we see a lot of different posts. I just noticed a post today that said there is a woman who does logos, and she posted, I feel bad about posting this. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, but basically I need to sell some logos so I can pay my rent. Mm-hmm. Like fast. I've been thinking actually about that post all day.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I felt like, wow, she's so brave.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's taking care of her family. She's doing what she needs to do to take care of her family. My perception of her was that she was very successful, making lots of money. Her logos are great. But then I saw that post, and she's posted a couple other things about depression too. And I don't really know her.
Yeah.
What do you think about a post like that?
Yeah, so that's a tough one, because it really does depend on your own personal like compass with that in terms of how you want to use social media. So I'll say that as a caveat. But the way that I think about this too is what do you want to be known for? Like, what do you want to be a leader in? Like, if she was someone who was a business coach, that probably would be not a great idea, right? Because if it's clear that she's having trouble paying for rent, but now she's telling people that she wants to help them grow their business, they can make sales, that's a little incongruent, and it shows that maybe she's not the best person to hire for that thing. And that's not to say people don't go through hard times. And, you know, I know you said she's struggling with depression. She could still, like, let's pretend she's a business coach. She could still be an awesome business coach while still going through a tough time. So like that's totally possible. However, just as a whole, generally, like if you go to hire a personal trainer and they're really overweight and like really struggling with their health, that you're probably not going to get a lot of clients, because it shows that you're not practicing what you preach, and that feels a little out of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's something like that, I think that's, you know, just something to pay attention to. Now, I know you said she's a designer, she does logos.
Mm-hmm.
So her ability to do logos probably has nothing to do with her ability to make money. But again, if she was really, really, really good at doing logos and her business was super successful, a lot of people assume that means that she's really good at her work. So if people see her talking about how she needs to pay rent with logos and needs to sell a bunch of them, that may indicate to some people that like maybe she's not that good at it, because if she was really good at it, she'd sell more of them.
Right.
But, you know, what we know as entrepreneurs is like you could be a poor marketer and still be really good at what you do. So it just, you know, but a lot of people may assume that anyway. So if you want to be a leader in that thing, maybe it's not an awesome idea to show that like you're really struggling with the thing you're trying to lead people through. Mm-hmm. Everyone has moments, of course, but like if it becomes something that happens all the time, I think that's really challenging. But my response would probably be the same as yours. I would look at that and be like, let me see who I can send to her. I think that's brave. I've been through mental health challenges. Like I know what that feels like. I'm really vulnerable. It probably is not easy for her to ask for help. Like I'm going to do what I can to support. But yeah, it's like we always have to be thinking of like what's the emotional response and what are people likely to do, and also what just, you know, what feels in alignment for us. I imagine that things are pretty bad for her to want to post on social media about it, because that's a scary thing to talk about.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I thought, oh my gosh, I wish I needed a logo.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought even about just getting one just because. Yeah. I mean, that's hard to do, but I think what I hear you saying is really being intentional about, you know, before you post, before you put out a piece of content, be really intentional about, you know, is this in alignment with me? What is my intention behind? What do I want out of this experience of posting this? And that's really important too. And I think so too. Like, you know, just, you don't have to worry about what other people think. It's not about other people, but what is your intention?
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. And, you know, another way to think about it too is like possibility for her. If she was my client, I would probably not have her make a post like that. I would probably advise her on how to speak, not from her experience, but to someone else's experience, and how to effectively use psychology in her marketing to speak to people who really need logos. Like, you know, 5 ways to get more sales today. Number 1, have a really solid brand so people recognize you. Number 2, that starts with having like a really awesome logo that people are like, it attracts people, you know, it's attractive to the eye, gets people to click on it, something that is like super intriguing. You know, I would have her make a post like that like drums up sales versus saying I need to pay my rent, because that's about her, right? Like that's like,
right.
I need help, give me money. She's not saying anything about like, let me help you. And, you know, it's almost like, I'm not trying to, you know, talk down on her situation. I know that's really challenging, but I think of those people on Instagram, and I'll see them comment, and they'll be commenting on other people's content, and they'll say things like, I'm almost to 10K, go follow me. And people are like, why should I do that? You know, like I have no incentive for doing that. So, you know, if you really want to like make money quickly, think about the people who you're trying to sell to. What do they need, and how can you solve a problem for them quickly and articulate that well? So that's what I would advise her to do. And then if she's really feeling like she wants to be vulnerable and share that, which I think is super powerful and effective, after she's then generated a bunch of sales and feels like
gotten through.
Yeah, and she's kind of like moved through it and she's out of the red. Because when you create content from a place of like, oh my God, like the scarcity, it's not a really, you don't really often make sales from that anyway. So once she feels a bit more grounded and out of the danger zone, I'd have her then reflect on things and choose to share how much she wants to share. And then I could picture her making a post saying, you know, let me be honest, like it's been pretty hard. Like there were times when I couldn't pay my rent and I was really scared that I was going to have to like go get a job, and it was freaking me out. And, you know, I moved through it, and here's what I learned from that. And here's what I want to say to anyone else who's struggling but doesn't want to tell people about it, you know, and that would be really powerful as well. So if I were her coach, that's kind of how I would walk her through it.
After you heal.
Yeah.
Talking about your, you know.
After you're at least like crazy zone where you're freaking out and panicking, you know, like the red zone is like not necessarily a place where it's like, let me share what's happening. Unless you really want to. I mean, it's obviously a personal choice, but I wouldn't recommend it if you're trying to make sales off of that content.
So interesting. All of this stuff. Well, obviously I'm interested in psychology, and so are you. And we could like talk for hours.
Yes, I know. I'm looking at the comments in case we missed any, but I think we're good for now. But does anyone have any questions about this stuff? I know there's a lot of stuff that's been covered over the past 50 minutes. What questions do you guys have? If none right now, we can jump off in a minute. I can answer some questions in the comments later as well.
Any questions about marketing for Jackie? A lot of people catch the replays. Too. So Jackie and I will both be looking for comments, questions that we're happy to answer in the group.
Yes.
If you catch the replay.
Yeah.
Thank you, my dear.
This was fun. It was good to riff on things, and I hope you guys got a lot out of this, and let me know if you have any questions. And
I do too.
Check out the Facebook group too if there's more stuff in there.
Okay, yeah. Let's put that in I'll put that in the comments.
Okay.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.